Sometimes the most unexpected valuations are given to items on the roadshow, and this could be either heartwarming or heart-crushing for the owners. A goldsmith, Paul Storr, whose pieces were widely used by English royalty, made these charming salt cellars that were brought in by a man during an episode in 1991. The man had inherited the piece from his father. The show's appraiser guessed that the salt cellars were replicated after a design made by another English goldsmith, Nicholas Spremont.
Just the quality of the work, everything is absolutely brilliant. I think I'd have to be looking at £40,000.
Good Lord. You do surprise me.
Did you even know there was such a thing as a brown diamond? This brown diamond brooch was given to the guest by her aunt because they shared the same name. Her sweet aunt was certain that the brooch wasn't a diamond, but the appraiser confirmed that indeed it was a brown diamond. The brooch was made with 2-carat diamonds in the 19th century.
And it's a shawl pin for a very elegant lady in about 1900.
Its value was £2,500. This item is an embroidery made around the heir of King Charles II. The appraiser informed that such artwork was common among the rich ladies of the 17th century period. They used French knot stitches and cut silk thread to create the art piece. The piece had detailed designs of different figures, like a lion, mermaid, and a rabbit. The piece valued at £6,000 to £8,000. This isn't just an ordinary large silver cup. It's a cup presented in 1874 as the Queen's Prize during the Royal Ascot, a sporting event held each year in Britain. The shape of the cup was derived from a 12th century object. They were made by the former royal silversmith, Gerards. The item was inherited by the owner from her aunt.
Today would probably fetch something between £30,000 and £40,000 sterling.
3 comic strips dating back to the early 20th century, including Disney's popular Mickey Mouse comic, were signed and given to this man's father. The other 2 comic strips were Crazy Cat by George Harriman and Prince Valiant by Harold Foster. The signatures on the comics include that of the founder of Disney, Walt Disney. The strips valued at $105,000 to $140,000.
I mean,
Goodness.
you can see why my heart just went pitter-pat when you opened that portfolio.
I'm astonished.
I'm curious, what is your favorite comic? Let me know in the comments. A guest received a painting in 2011, which was made in 2010 by an old friend of hers named Frederick J. Brown. Frederick Brown is a visual artist from Chicago. His art are notable pieces and are being displayed in various prestigious museums. Brown is mostly known as an abstract expressionist painter, but has also done some portraits. His love for jazz music equally influences his art making. The painting he gifted the lady is a series of 4 pieces titled Going Home. It included his signature and an inscription of her name.
For these 4 pieces, as a complete set, retail value would be $20,000.
That sounds good. That's very good.
She admires this sculpture so much that she can't stop singing praises about it. Edward Onslow Ford is the man behind the creation of this piece. It's a bronze sculpture made in the 1880s. Ford's pieces are mostly representations of women, just like the one brought to the show. This piece was valued at $20,000. This man brought a 7-barreled volley gun that was used by the Royal Navy during the Napoleonic War. An ancestor of the guest acquired the gun in place of a debt that the debtor couldn't pay. Since then, the gun has been in the family and passed down generations. The gun was invented by a British engineer, James Wilson, but named Knock Gun after the gunmaker, Henry Knock.
And quite exciting. I'm sure that there's many gun collectors would just like to see this, have the opportunity even to handle it. Something in relation to £4,000.
The owner of this item hopes the maker is as valuable as the great Picasso. Unfortunately, he's not. Her piece was made around 1950 in Italy by Marcello Fantoni. Marcello was a talented ceramist who made great pieces. The item was given a value of $3,000.
My, oh my, that's a nice return on my money, isn't it?
Excellent return.
Furniture by a remarkable man named the Furniture Jeweler has been kept under the wraps for 40 years. It was made by André Charles Boulet, a French cabinet maker whose style was characterized by brass and tortoiseshell marquetry. His furniture are being displayed in various museums, such as the Art Institute of Chicago, Victoria and Albert Museum, and Cleveland Museum of Art. The furniture brought in by the guest was valued at £5,500. This oddly looking cow clay vessel was used to retain the hotness of stew. It was used to present food on tables and was big enough to contain a decent quantity of food.
In there, you would have got a whole rabbit in there, several whole rabbits.
I would say yes, at least 2 or 3 rabbits if it was a large family.
The vessel was made with flower pot clay, which was good at retaining temperature. On the piece was a molded figure of a Dutchman, which suggests that it was made around the 18th century. The piece was passed on to the owner from her mother. Regardless of the damage to the item, it valued at £3,000 to £4,000. It's quite fascinating to see an object that has lived for almost 2,400 years. The object is a figurine that was made in Rhodes. It was purchased by the owner for £10 at a local shop. The figurine, which represents a mother goodness, was made with terracotta.
It's so wonderfully calm and serene, isn't it, as it sits there, unfortunately damaged.
The item had some damage and was valued at
£140, £150.
This lady must have felt the shivers when she was chatting with the prestigious Elvis Presley backstage before his show began. Elvis gave her his belt and an autographed record album after their encounter. Both pieces valued at $7,500 to $10,000. These poster designs were used on the cover of Railway Age magazine in the 50s. Some people, however, weren't totally fascinated about the art, but the guest was. He purchased the posters and original arts from private dealers. Some of the items had the signature of the artist Burn Hill. All the items brought in by the guest valued between $37,000 to $42,000. The framed photo of Marilyn Monroe, which was brought to the show, was autographed by the actress herself. The framed photo was inherited by this woman from her family.
I had an uncle, Jack Petrie, who was a gifted musician, and he played for Fred Karger off and on, who was in charge of the music for Columbia Studios. Fred Karger was her vocal coach.
The photo was taken by lead photographer Frank Poloni in 1953 for the movie Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, where Marilyn was the main character. This portrait is indeed a ravishing one.
In the past 2 years, a few have sold for as much as $50,000 and $63,000 that were, I would say, comparable in quality to yours. So if it did do well in excess of that estimate, I wouldn't be surprised, because there are only so many of these out there that are authentic. And again, having your story is pretty fantastic.
My goodness, yes.
Her grandmother's engagement ring later becomes hers. However, she chooses to store it in a safety deposit box. The ring was a popular type of ring in the early 20th century. It is a highly stylish yellow diamond and platinum ring made with about ½ a carat of diamond.
Well, it looks to me like a very fine sort of East Coast jeweler. It's unsigned, so we can't really determine who made it. But because of the fine platinum work and this really nice garland motif, which we have on the sides here as well, it's a very fine ring and a very fine manufacturer.
The ring's value was $4,000 to $6,000. Although this painting had no signature, the appraiser could tell who the artist was from its brushstrokes. The artist was Sir William Beechey, a British painter who painted many people of high societal status, including King George III. The portrait on the show was that of 2 unknown ladies.
But other details, such as the face here and here, are really very nicely painted.
The owner was surprised to hear the appraiser say,
Fully accepted as by Sir William Beechey, is probably going to be worth somewhere in the region of sort of 15, maybe as much as £20,000.
Much as that?
When this woman ran for Coolidge Cotton Day Rodeo Queen, she proudly rode the saddle her grandfather gifted her when she was 4 years old. The saddle had designs that were made with cactus fiber. It was made around the early 20th century and used during special occasions. The saddle had a value of $6,000 to $8,000. For 20 years, the guest had this Victorian painting in her possession. The painting was bought by her husband out of the couple's admiration for it. It was painted by an English painter, Carlton Alfred Smith. Carlton made many paintings which showed scenes of mothers and their daughters. The guest painting was equally a detailed scene of a mother and her sleeping daughter.
And always Carlton Smith, who is the artist,
Yes.
Carlton Alfred Smith, it would be worth between £7,000 and £10,000, British pounds.
Cute kitten figures that have been passed down by 3 generations of women have a distinct look. The current owner mentioned she inherited them from her mother, who also inherited them from her own mother. The lady found the figurines scary as a child, but found the value even scarier. The kittens were made around 1910 by a firm called Gepruder Huber in Lichten, Germany, known for producing bisque dolls. The head of the figurines is made of bisque, while the body is made of papier-mâché. The kittens were a cute and complete set, which is rarely seen.
So as a set, they're worth about $7,000.
I don't know what to say to that. That's amazing.
Are they still freakish to you?
Well, yes, actually. Maybe they're even a little more freakish since I wasn't expecting that at all.
A lover of Picasso was disappointed after learning that her ceramic vases she traveled all the way to France to buy was out of stock. The items she got instead turned out to have great value. She and her husband visited Valuations, where Picasso lived, and purchased 2 pieces that were designed by Picasso for Madura pottery. Both items were valued at
auction, roughly $8,000 to $12,000.
Oh my God, that is really amazing.
And this vase, about $10,000 to $15,000.
Oh my God. But I'd never sell them, ever.
His grandaunt's most prized possession racks up thousands in value, regardless of the damage it has. Before the guest grandaunt passed away, she gave him this beautifully painted bowl. The bowl was made in China around the 18th century. During that period, people sent bowls and the designs they wanted on them to China to get painted. The guest bowl was colorfully painted with European hunting scenes. Sadly, the glaze inside the bowl was flaked, and it had a crack on the edge.
But still, it is one of the smartest kinds of punch bowl. £3,000 to £4,000. In this condition, £1,800.
George Nakashima, an American woodmaker and father of the American craft movement, made this unique furniture for the Guest family. The Guest brought in the furniture and a sketch of the bench that was done by George. Luckily for them, they kept George's original sketch, which boosted the value of the bench.
Now, because you have the drawing, you get to add a few thousand more on top of that. So say we're at the $45,000 mark. For insurance, you might want to raise it higher, but this is, I'd say $45,000.
Oh my God.
These decorated tiles that hung on the Guest fireplace were made by John Sadler, a tile printer who was based in Liverpool. The tiles were made in the 18th century to serve as a decoration for houses. The Guest tiles had paintings of the sailor leaving and returning from a voyage. The tile with John's signature had a value of £200, while the others valued at £120. Great thing is, she had more of those back home.
Made in Liverpool in the middle of the 18th century, just after.
She bagged a $1 million win with her father's 4-piece jade collection. The historic jade collection included a bowl, which is referred to as a Mogul style and is 18th century Chinese, a jug with a ruby stone on the top, also Mogul style of the 18th century, a carved animal called a bixie that is used to ward off evil, and a big bowl.
This one has an inscription in the bottom that is imperial. It has a cyclical date there
which they kind of had to read because they run in 62-year cycles. But it also has the mark by imperial order rather than just made. So it was made specifically for the emperor himself.
Let's see what they're worth.
For a total amount of between $710,000 to $1,070,000.
Damn.
It's an incredible collection.
Most people wouldn't look twice at an abandoned jacket covered in mud. This man, however, picked up an abandoned muddy jacket and program used during the Woodstock Music Festival in 1969. The two items had a fair value, and the owner would be glad that he picked them up.
When these do come up for sale at auction, they traditionally sell anywhere between $2,000 and $2,500. So in the condition that you have here, I would expect this one to sell anywhere in the $500 to $600 range at auction.
The appraiser described this painting as dirty. However, it had an outstanding value. The owner revealed that it had been in her family for over 100 years. It was passed on by her maternal grandfather, who purchased it from Holland. The painting was made by a Dutch painter, Herman Swaneveld, who made landscape paintings. The painting that had belonged to the guest valued at $15,000. Reading a World War II journal would most likely bring tears to the eyes. The journal of an Air Corps during the war was brought in by his daughter. It contains some sketches and documentations of events that happened while he was a prisoner of war at a camp in Barth. For the value of the journal, the appraiser had this to say.
So we've got the monetary value, which at auction would be in about the $2,000 to $3,000 range. As far as I'm concerned, its historic value is priceless. Thanks for bringing it in today.
No, thank you, Dad.
Fancy long case clock by John Aylward was brought to the show by the owner. John Aylward was a clockmaker who settled in Guildford during the late 17th century and began making clocks. John presented a clock to Guildhall, which was erected on the building. The guest clock was a 10-inch dial with a single hand. Its casing was slightly damaged after the owner attempted to restore it. Unfortunately, this affected the value of the clock.
With the case in this state, probably no more than about 5,000 to 6,000. But it is a very, very unusual clock.
Just like the photographer, the owner of these pictures felt nostalgic after seeing the photos which were photographed by William Christenberry. She purchased both photos for $10 at a thrift store and was super excited to hear the appraiser say,
In terms of value today at auction, I would estimate each of these between $1,000 and $1,500.
Oh. Thank you so much. That's not bad.
At first sight, you wouldn't think the content of this box would be a complete set of painting tools. The box was gifted to the lady by her father. It was made in the 19th century by the company Winsor & Newton, which was founded by William Windsor and Henry Newton. The content of the box included watercolor, brushes, palette trays, and other painting materials. The painting box valued at $2,500 to £3,000. A lot of people know about Pokemon card game, but not many know about the card game that preceded it and influenced its creation. Magic the Gathering was a card game that was first launched in 1993. The husband of the guest played the game and had all the cards in the beta set, including the most wanted Power 9 cards.
In the remainder of the binder for all the pages there, because they're all beta cards, they're all early 1993 beta cards, you're looking at an additional $10,000 to $15,000. So cumulatively, you're looking at auction between $65,000 and $100,000 in trading cards
Oh my
here.
gosh.
Ever expected your husband's
No,
trading
because
card?
they just like the cards to me.
While the couple were in Hong Kong during his birthday in 1964, his wife bought him a Rolex day-date model as a birthday present. The watch was manufactured by the Swiss watch designer Rolex. The model of the watch was later to be known as the presidential model. The guest had wanted the yellow gold type, but it was out of stock, so he got one of the 18-karat white gold watches. The show's appraiser noted that just the piece of foil that came with the watch would fetch $500 and above. The man's watch still had the complete set it came with, and because of this, the value was extremely high.
In today's market, because it's a whole complete set and the watch is in such great condition, a retail price on this is going to be $20,000.
Oh, my. Well, it kept up with the times.
Keep watching this channel for more.